Welcome inside the HighSchoolOT press box. I am Joel Bryant. We have a special episode today. We are previewing the 919 area code in football. With me right now is Jonas Pope, one of our best writers. Jonas, for those that don't know you, give yourself kind of a background and kind of explain how long you've been writing and where you've been writing. And honestly, guys, Jonas is one of the best writers in the state. We're so happy to have him on our team here covering games for us. So Jonas, kind of take it away and tell folks about yourself.
Hey man, thank you for saying it, and thank you for having me.
Yeah.
A little background. I guess I go backwards. I've been fortunate enough to help you guys out for the last couple of years here at High School OT, which I really appreciate. It's been a way to get me back to my favorite form of athletics, which is the high school level. Prior to that, I was full time in the News Observer. Prior to the News Observer, I was in the Durham Herald Sun. I guess kind of the same thing. Prior to the Herald Sun, was a beat writer for Tar Heel Illustrated, covering UNC athletics. And then prior to that, I was at the Daily Herald in the 252 in Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina for 7 years. So that's my journey in this sports journalism field.
Awesome. And Jonas, we've seen some preseason action so far in the area here. You were at the HighSchoolOT Jamboree last week at Wake Forest. We saw the Bulldog Bash last night. Did you make it out to Enloe last night as well?
So I did go to Enloe for a little while. My nephew is on the Felton Grove JV. So I did see
Felton Grove.
JV.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Galaxy. Shout out Easton Walker. Um, I, that's 919. So can we start there? Can I get them big ups real quick?
Yeah.
I'm not just saying this because my nephew's on the team, but I told the coach. Well, I told my brother-in-law first. I was like, "Doesn't it be a new program and it'd be mostly freshmen? And I guess all freshmen or freshmen and some sophomores."
Yeah,
Like,
all freshmen sophomores.
they look well organized. Like for them to just be starting out, like they were a well-oiled machine. For a person like myself who's seen a lot of high school football and seen college practices and seen how their teams are run, they were super organized. Like when they lined up, offenses and everything, it was super organized.
Wow, okay, that's
So
good to hear. I know.
props to Felton Grove starting out the gate, but looking like they've been around forever. I wouldn't. I made it a point to go tell the coach, like, Coach, you guys look organized. You guys look like you've been around forever. So props to you for that.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive to hear. I know they're having a big kind of debut on Thursday night because all their games are JV games this year, so they're gonna have a big kind of a opening game, but it's gonna be JV. But it'll still be a pretty cool environment there. That's good to hear that they're off to a nice start there.
Yeah, they look good against. I think it's like Panther Creek. They
Okay.
they look good. They look really good.
Okay. So let's start with that conference that they're in, actually. So Felton Grove is in the Triangle 6, 6A, 7A. The theme of this whole episode is going to be we have new conferences, so we're trying to get used to the new rivalries and the new kind of fights for conference championships. So Felton Grove will be in that conference as a 6A school, also with Mill Creek. Of course, Felton Grove will not play varsity until next year, but Mill Creek's going to be a problem in 6A this year. But the other schools in this conference are 7A's Cardinal, Gibbons, Cary, Holly Springs, and Sanderson. Jonas, Cardinal Gibbons is one of our top 10 teams in the state. You saw them on Saturday. Give us your impression of this team.
Well, for any high school program, we have a Division One, Power Five quarterback. That's you always gonna look good. And you have Gannon Jones, a type or Gannon Jones type dude leading your offense. So let's start there. You know, he's leading the way, and that's a good start. He's going to be the guy that kind of makes that engine go. But one thing about Cardinal Gibbons, whereas I just gave Felton Grove credit for looking organized, and one thing you know about Cardinal Gibbons, they're going to be on point. They're going to be organized. They're going to be disciplined. They're going to be like, you got to play almost perfect to even be in the game with Cardinal Gibbons. And I think we saw that last Saturday. Big plays on offense. I was super impressed when they took Gannon Jones out and they put in the backup who led up for a game-winning drive. And I think he told me like this only like the first or second year playing football. So one thing about Cardinal Gibbons, they have a guy, but they always have a guy in the wings who's going to be pretty good. I think we saw it all across the board. So always a deep team, always disciplined, always execute at a high level, and we saw that in a limited dose at the Jamboree last week. So Cardinal Gibbons is rinse, wash, repeat. One of those programs they just kind of just throughout the years, you know what you're going to get with them.
Yeah. They're kind of like the high school version of the quarterback factory. There's always someone waiting the wings. I mean, remember Gannon Jones, like he was the backup when he first started out. He had to take over with Neubauer, and he came in and lit it up. So it seems like there's always someone just waiting to come light up when they need to light it up. So it's quite a program Stephen Wright's got there. What were your thoughts on Middle Creek as the 6A school in this conference? They're probably going to be the favorite to be the second place team in this conference. I know they're kind of had a tough one against Wake Forest in the Jamboree, but they're still kind of young, working a new quarterback. What's your impression of them?
I think when J. Mike and I were calling the game last week versus Wake Forest, we kept saying junior, sophomore, junior, sophomore, junior, sophomore. I'm like, man, there's a lot of underclassmen on both of these rosters, which is always a good sign. I was always told like you want to see how good a team is, look to the junior class. So if you're Little Creek, who doing it toe to toe with Wake Forest, even though Wake Forest is not what we came to love in that three championship run. I mean, they're still Wake Forest. They're still one of the blue bloods in the state, and Little Creek more than held their own. So I think that's going to go a long way for their confidence when you have a young roster like they have in Little Creek.
Spur notes in this conference. So we have Cary in this conference, Holly Springs in this conference, and Saracen in this conference. Saracen's got a younger team this year, a lot of sophomores on that team. They're working with two sophomore quarterbacks, kind of a competition there. So it might not be Saracen's year to really contend, but they have a good, promising future down the road here. Cary last night at the Bulldog Bash, Cary defeated Knightdale in that scrimmage, and that kind of took me by surprise. I was expecting Knightdale to kind of look like the better team in that one, but Cary's quarterback Nick Grena, he is a very good dual threat type. They are not afraid to run him, and he got a lot of first downs, and he scored some as well. Cary surprisingly to me looks more organized this year, and I think that's going to benefit them. Obviously, last year they had the expectations when they had Gus Ritchie and Trey there at the tackle spot. But I think Cary might be a surprising team just from the standpoint of everyone, assumes when Gus Ritchie's gone, that's not going to be much of a factor. But they could be an interesting team this year. Do you have any other thoughts on this conference here before we move on?
Well, I know the last few years, it's always been whatever Carter Gibbons and then everybody else.
Yeah.
Honestly, what you said about Sanderson and all these other young teams, I don't see how much that's going to change. Honestly, seeing Carter Gibbons last week. But conferences, I mean, when you have a bunch of teams right there battling and chasing to get over that hill, I guess the hill is Carter Gibbons, it'll make it some interesting conference battles, like you said about Cary and Middle Creek. Cary is one of those programs that there's always talent on those rosters.
Right.
They're always producing Division I ACC guys. It seems like all the time, or not even Division I, just ACC guys. They're sending guys to college at a high level every year, so they always have the talent, and you're just waiting for them. Now, I guess when I look at this conference, I guess what I'm trying to say is, can Cary be that team that gives Carter Gibbons a challenge? Can they compete for that crown in this league? Yeah, that would be the team in that conference I kind of keep my eye on. Can they make that push to knock off Carter Gibbons?
Yeah, they could definitely be a dark horse in this one. My note in Holly Springs is Holly Springs had their quarterback transfer out to Rollsville, Caleb Williams. They're also their top receiver from last year, Tracy Harrington, transferred to Mill Creek. And that's going to bring us into the next conference here. So the new Cap 8 conference, Jonas, with Rollsville, Millbrook, Leesville, then a slew of other teams from the Raleigh area, as well as cornholers from Johnson County. When this conference first came out, what was your first thought when you saw this one?
Roseville, Millbrook conference championship game late in the season.
Right.
High school game day setting up. I don't even know if that's a thing. I've been joking with you guys. We need to do a high school OT game day pregame show for that game. But no, that's going to be the big battle. It's been kind of building towards that point for the last couple of years. That was my first thought. My first thought when the new conferences came out, like, all right, which conference in Roseville is Roseville in? Right. Who else is in the conference with them? Millbrook and Leesville will be those two teams we're going to see. You can't overlook Leesville. They're always well coached. Always have tons of talent. They got a Wake Forest kid on their roster. Always have some good depth. But I think everyone in this part of the state is looking forward to. I don't know the date off the top of my head, but Millbrook, Roseville for the de facto probably conference championship late in the season.
Yeah. So the funny thing is that game is actually scheduled for late September, so September 26th. So the good news is that there's a better chance that most guys will be healthy by then because there won't be that cumulative effect. But the bad news is you kind of want to see that game on like a really late October Friday night.
We want to flex that game. That's the last game of the regular season.
Yeah.
That's needed.
Yeah, you have that high school. But the other thing about it is like that first game, I'm pretty sure might not be the last time they play this year. Just when you look at the rest of the 8A East, you can see those two being on a collision course in the playoffs for sure. What were your questions?
Side note: that is a September game. This is North Carolina, so maybe we'll get a hurricane. They had to reschedule that game and put it to the end of the year. So
That's
that's kind of
possible.
not taking responsibility to happen.
I just saw we already got a 5-star a Category 5 hurricane out in the tropics right now. So
It's a 5-star hurricane.
yeah, jeez, it's hopefully that's like the only one we get.
Yeah.
What were your impressions of both teams at the Jamboree on Saturday night?
You know, I didn't say this on air, but I thought about it after the fact. I have a new name for Roseville. I'm calling them Reloadsville because that's what they did across the board. You know, you lose or is it Jaden Alford to Elon and plug in another number 17 wide receivers. Now you got 3 Division One high prospect wide receivers on offense. Defense was just you lose Xavier Lewis, who's in North Carolina, and Fry, who's at Boston College. And you just plug them in with other guys who physically look the part, on the defensive line. I think Rack told us that he feels like this year's defensive line is going to be better than it was last year, which is kind of crazy to even imagine. But they looked the part. They got behind the line of scrimmage a lot last week against Cardinal Gibbons. I mean, the defense is. I wasn't worried about their defense. I was just kind of curious to see how the offense would look without Braden Atkinson. And, you know, they missed him at certain points. You could tell they missed him. They didn't throw the balls downfield. I feel like as much as they did when Braden was there. But the quarterback they have in now is a dual threat. He can beat you with his legs. So that's again Reloadsville is what I'm calling that team. And then Millbrook's that team I think we've been waiting for the last couple of years to kind of see if they can get over that hump. I mean they had to do. I mean you read HighSchoolOT.com. We talked about their 2 top 10 prospects in the state. Streets and Cypher. We didn't see Cypher at the Jamboree. Nothing major I've heard. He'll be right back. He's playing to participate tonight. But they looked the part on defense even without him. And even offensively, I think I was impressed with their running back and their receiver, but they had the weapons. So I'm like, okay, this is a team that, again, that collision course, I hated early in the season, but that's going to be the collision course. And like you say, once we get into September, there's a good possibility that we'll get it again in November, December, when it really counts to go to the state championship, I believe.
Yeah, I feel like there's some parallels, in terms of like the builds of the teams, right? So we're pretty confident in both defenses. To me, I think you'd probably agree with this. This is more of a passing game thing that just needs to develop over the course of the season for them to be able to contend with a West Charlotte and a Huff in a state championship game. And I do think both quarterbacks, Bryson Gray for Millbrook and Caleb Williams for Rolesville, I think they looked better in actual live action than they were looking in 7-on-7s. I think both of them were still probably learning new pieces around them in 7-on-7s and still getting the system down in 7-on-7s. But when it got the actual game action, I was impressed with both players on Saturday night. Rolesville, you mentioned the reloading. They lose Xavier Lewis and Jaden Fry. They bring in Ravenscroft's best player, who was the defensive lineman, Jaden Colson. They bring in East Wake's best player, who's defensive lineman, Malachi Harris, who's committed to ODU. So yeah, they literally reloaded, and those guys look pretty good on Saturday night. I don't know where I'm leaning between these two teams at this point, Jonas. I don't know if you want to make a prediction here.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, we'll maybe make a prediction later in the season. It'll be closer to the game. Maybe it'll become apparent by then. But at this point, I'm just going to stay away from it because either way, someone's going to be upset, and we'll probably be wrong. When it turns out. So rest of this conference, Jonas, we have Leesville Road. They have a Wake Forest committed wide receiver in Devin Goldston. His older brother, DeAndre Goldston, was the quarterback last year. He's graduated now. So Leesville's looking for a new quarterback. That's going to be the thing for that team is how good can that new quarterback be. The other teams in this conference, Jonas, Athens Drive, Broughton, Corinth Holders, Enloe, and Wakefield. Any other thoughts on the rest of these teams here?
I like what I saw physically from Corinth Holders.
Mm-hmm.
They had guys who looked the part, really, really looked like some really good football players. I don't know. I didn't catch all of their games. So I don't know how young their roster was. I know that you have a pretty solid program. Broughton, Athens Drive, Enloe, they got to show me. I haven't seen enough from them in the past to confidently speak about them, saying they're gonna make a push this year. I know Enloe has gone through their struggles. Broughton can be kind of up and down. I know Athens Drive has gone through their struggles recently, so I'm curious to see if they can. It's only up for that from here from all those programs. If they can just kind of compete, stay that middle of the pack, and make it interesting. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We all see this conference going to go down to Roseville and Millbrook probably, and hopefully everyone else can fight and make those games competitive on Friday night.
Yeah. Corinth-Olders, I'm optimistic about the long-term trajectory of that team. I think last year they made an outstanding hire. Could bring in Carl Smith, who used to be at Beddingfield in person. They hired him. I think like they announced it in August, early August last year. They hired him with the same group of guys. They basically, improved their wins by like 4 and went to the playoffs and everything. So curious to see how they do this year with the full offseason with him, and just also long-term, because that school's always had size in the trenches. Yeah. It's just a matter.
That's what I said. Seeing them last time, they look.
Yeah.
They passed the eye test getting off the bus, and they physically they look good against Southern Durham. So I'm like, they definitely look the part. So we got to see if they can compete in that league. They come to Wake County and compete a little bit.
Yeah. So the other 8A conference, and again, this is Jonas Pope with us. He's a contributor for HighSchoolOT. Jonas, by the way, where can people follow you on a Twitter and whatnot?
Twitter is JE Pope IV, and on Instagram is Jonas Pope IV.
Gotcha. I should have asked you that at the beginning, but I remember now. So the other 8A conference is the Quad City 7. This one has Apex Friendship, Green Hope, Green Level, Jordan, Panther Creek, and Willow Spring. So the obvious thing is Jordan being in this conference, the school from Durham. They are loaded this year. They return 18 starters from a team that won 10 games last season. We couldn't see them play a full game last night at the Bulldog Bash, but what we did see looked pretty good. Noah Clark, the 4-star defensive lineman, is going to be a force for teams. And the quarterback, Landon Melton, he's one of the better dual threat guys in this state, super accurate and very creative with his legs too. He had a really nice scramble where he kind of weaved one way, weaved the other way last night against Southeast Raleigh. So Jordan's looking pretty good. What was your general take on this conference when it first came out, the kind of format of it?
That was interesting to pull the one Durham team over there with the rest of the Western Weight teams. Like, I guess it's probably closer than I think.
Yeah.
I like that they have the rivalries, the natural rivalries together with some of those teams in Western Weight. But it's just weird seeing Jordan thrown in there. But I like the natural rivalries all being in the same league.
Yeah. I think Jordan was put in this one because at the time, like, we were thinking that, we would still have like similar rules for playoff qualification that we had been having. So Jordan is the only 8A team in Durham. So they wanted to pair them with other 8A schools. But now looking back on it, now that the playoffs are only RPI, there's probably an argument to be made that Jordan just go in the Durham conference, which we'll talk about later. But you're agreeing that Jordan is probably the heavy favorite in this league?
Yeah, I saw Jordan last year against Hillside in that playoff matchup, and they beat Hillside over there. And that was an impressive team. I didn't realize 18 starters were coming back for that team. Like I said, they won 10 games, lost to the Cleveland in the playoffs. No shame in losing to Cleveland at the end of your season.
Right.
But yeah, again, it goes back to what I said. When you want to talk about the projection of a team, you got to look at that junior class. And they had 18 guys last year back this year. I mean, they're going to be super solid this year with more experience. So yeah, watch out for them to make a deep run and make some noise in the postseason.
Yeah, a lot of people are probably assuming without Marion Blue, the star running back, he's like the one main player that graduated. A lot of people probably count them out at first, but before they realize that all the starters are back besides him pretty much. So that's a team that I feel like there's a reality in which Jordan seriously contends with Millbrook and Rollsville for that 8A East championship. If there's another team besides those two from that CAP conference that could do it, it might be Jordan. So I'll be monitoring that. Some other notes on these teams. Apex hired an alum, Rob Frank, to be the head coach this offseason. Apex Friendship is coming off another good season, playoff season, but they lost their star running back, Jaden Avery. So that'll be interesting to see how they replace that. Green Hope and Mitch Johnson. Mitch Johnson took over Green Hope last year. Not very successful last year, but the team was so young, and they're still so young. I think they only have about a dozen seniors on this year's team, so that's a team we're looking at long-term. Green Level, Coach Wolf is doing a good job with that program. Panther Creek, this is the one, Jonas, where if there's a team that's going to kind of emerge in this conference, it might be Panther Creek, because that's another school where, like we were mentioning, that just always has athletes there. It's just you never really know what you're going to get. But with that said, I wouldn't be shocked if they just had a nice 7-win season out of nowhere.
Yeah, I've seen Panther Creek the last couple of years in some postseason runs, and like you said, when signing day comes, you always look up like, oh, they got Panther Creek got a kid going to Carolina. Panther Creek got a kid going here. So yeah, always talent, and it's a matter of putting together when it counts in the postseason or late in the season. They're always a team. They're no pushover. I'll put it to you that way. It's a team you got to watch out for every year.
The last team in this conference is Willow Spring. They made the playoffs for the first time last year, so that program's heading in the right direction as well. Let's go over to the Durham Conference, though. So the Durham Conference is called the let me find it here. I'm still going through my list here. So the Tobacco Road 6A, 7A. We have East Chapel Hill in 6A. Northern Durham in 6A, Chapel Hill in 7A. So it's really the Durham schools in East Chapel Hill and Chapel Hill, and also Riverside in 7A, Southern Durham in 7A, and I said Hillside, right? Hillside's also in this conference. So we saw Southern Durham at the Jamboree. What was your takeaway on them?
Very talented, a lot of talent. I mean, the skill positions, absolutely next level talent. Skill positions, big up front on both sides of the ball. Athletes everywhere on the defensive side of the ball. I saw a coach this morning. And I told him that was one of the most impressive top to bottom teams that I saw last week at the Jamboree. I'm talking about. I can't even single out one guy who stood out. It's like that roster from top to bottom, that 22 they put on the field was solid. I didn't see a weak spot in the limited play I saw them because I got there a little bit late. I didn't see a weakness offensively or defensively from those 22 guys that on the field. And it's something you know what you're going to get with them each year. Not a lot's going to change. They've had a consistent head coach and some continuity. Yeah, so you know what you're going to get from them every year. It's going to be a solid program each time.
The thing I like about them is all those guys that are the athlete types. So like Lance Henderson, Jonathan Dillon, Caden Van, like these guys, they're not afraid to play them both ways. And I think you rarely see that in schools that are 7A size. But I like how they're willing to throw them out there if they can do it. Like the Travis Hunter thing. If he can do it, then let him do it. If they can play that much, then let him do it. And all those guys are very talented. I'm curious to see how the lines operate, particularly that defensive line without Isaiah Campbell this year. He's off to Tennessee, so that'll be interesting to follow. But I think the general thing with Southern Durham is we're going to need them to strap it in a little bit penalty-wise. They hit a lot of penalties in that Jamboree, but that's why we're there. We're practicing. If they can stay at a average penalty pace this year, the talent that they have is going to be so overwhelming for a lot of teams. For Hillside this year, Jordan. So Hillside is another year under Torrey now. I believe it's going to be his third year. Obviously, he's a state championship level coach. And then this year, they bring in the running back from Riverside, Jamarian Ross, to go into that system. Ross was a 1,500-yard rusher last year. He's one of the top returning running backs in this area. How do you see this Hillside program kind of developing here? And do you think under this year, under Coach Now, do you think this could be the year where they really make a huge jump?
So it's funny you asked me that question because I was thinking about that this morning. Mm-hmm. How long it took him at each stop. He's a program changer, right? He goes to Pamlico.
Yeah.
They get to a state championship. He goes to New Bern, which is a perennial power, and gets them back to the top of the mountain. They win a state championship. There's another perennial power to stay in Hillside in year 3. I'm like, all right, that's year 3. You did come in with a complicated system, triple option. I saw them play last year, like, okay, they got it down, but that's one of those offenses, one of those systems. Once you get to a certain year with a certain amount of guys, it kind of takes off. Like I said, this being year 3. I've been curious all season to see like this is a year that it clicks for everybody and they really push them to the next level. So I mean he's done it. It's proven he can go somewhere and turn around and get programs back on top. And again, with that system, with any new system, especially that one, it's a matter of time. And then we're year 3. I really expect them to be a powerhouse again that we all know Hills had to be.
Some other notes on the teams in this conference. So East Chapel Hill hired a new coach this offseason. Ricky Morton's taking over that program. Obviously, they've been on some hard times lately. So by any time you get a new head coach, you have to be optimistic, see what that coach can do, and we'll see how they do this year. As far as the rest of the conference, Northern Durham, interesting. So not a very good season last year again, but they actually have a number of transfers this offseason where they've gotten guys from different areas, from Oxford, and they also got a kid from Hillside. I saw last week a defensive lineman named Sterling Edwards, who's a good player. So Northern Durham could be one of these sneaky teams this year that kind of comes out of nowhere. I'm not expecting like a 7-win, 6-win kind of deal, but I definitely see them improve this year. And then Riverside, Corey Lee is one of the longer tenured coaches in this area. They're always so solid, well disciplined. So looking forward to see how they kind of compete in this Durham centric conference from now on. Any other notes in this conference where we hit on, Jonas?
No, I love the fact that the Durham schools, with the exception of Jordan, all in the same league. I love that. I love it. I mean, natural rivalries in the same league.
It's going to be some good gates, especially in October, later in the season when they're all playing each other. Because remember, Southern Durham was in that weird Northern Lakes 2A, 3A conference. So they were playing Vance County. They were playing South Granville. They were playing a lot of schools that aren't by them. So it'll be good for them to get back into the Durham area conference-wise. So the other big conference in this area, Jordan, the Northern 6, 6A, 7A. So this is kind of the new NAC 6. So it has Heritage, Wake Forest, Knightdale, East Wake, Vance County, and Franklinton. Franklinton and Vance County are 6As. The rest are 7As. We saw Wake Forest at the Jamboree. They beat Mill Creek in that game. What was your takeaway from them?
I told Jay before I even said it, Jay, I texted my nephew who's a Wake Forest grad. He's a Wake Forest Roseville grad actually. He played football there. I was like, hey man, Wake Forest came out with 3 wide receivers. And he was like, this is the beginning of the end. He joked when he said that. Like, we also used to Wake Forest running the ball, having a wing team, having a bunch of running backs. But no, shout out to Reggie Lucas for adjusting with the personnel and adjusting with the time and adjusting to what he has on his roster. I got to give him props for that. Wake Forest, again, I mentioned this earlier, even though they're not the Wake Forest of the 3 straight championship team type Wake Forest, still pretty solid. Still solid defensively. Still can run the ball they need to. Their running back, they have Michael.
Michael Olu. Yep.
Michael Olu.
Yep.
Impressive. Big kid. Very elusive. I mean, for his size, I was very impressed with his footwork and how he moved. And that's what Wake Forest always has that one guy that that you're gonna look for. He's in my opinion, the next guy in line of like the Bryce Loves and Devin Lawrence, those type of guys. And just the juniors, all right?
Yes. Yeah. And I liked how they were using him in the passing game as well. So they're getting creative with him as well. So Wake Forest, I like how they look in the trenches. Their offensive line looks more like kind of the lines we were used to in the late 2010s. I think it's just gonna be a matter of just getting consistent in the passing game. Last night against Garner at the Bulldog Bash, they didn't have too many good looks down the field passing wise, but Garner's got a good defense themselves. So interested to see Wake Forest. I do consider them the favorite in this conference. Do you agree with that?
1,000%.
Yeah. So otherwise, we have East Wake in this conference, Knightdale and Heritage. Knightdale had a rough one last night at the Bulldog Bash. I feel like they were rotating a lot of guys in, but they failed to carry in that game. Like the quarterback, Jamel Perry, the receiver, Larry Cooper. So those guys are still juniors, so they still got some time to kind of see this whole thing out. Heritage, hearing good things out of Heritage actually in preseason. They ended the season on a high note. It sounds weird because they won 2 games last year, but they almost beat Cleveland, the number 1 seed, during the first round of the playoffs. So that would have been something if they pulled it off. But hearing good things out of them. East Wake, I feel like if Malachi Harris did not leave East Wake for Roseville, East Wake would have been solidly the number 2 team in this conference. Without him, though, not too sure. They do have some other good guys back on that team. And Coach Harrison's done a good job with that program. And I would just say for East Wake, just watch them over the next few years because that Wendell Zebulon area is growing in population tremendously. So it's kind of like the new Roseville in terms of the population growth out there. So monitor East Wake for the next few years. Jonas, any thoughts on Franklinton and Vance County being in this conference?
It's interesting to bring those 2 schools into the Valley and Wake County schools. I remember when Franklin, when I was in high school, Franklin was 1A. So shout out to that growth they got out there in Franklinton.
Yeah.
It's blowing my mind that they're in a conference with Wake Forest. Because like I said, they were 1A school out of high school. I saw Vance at the Jamboree last year, 2024 Jamboree. Athletes all across the field, like a bunch of athletic dudes who those guys can keep you in a game alone because these got athletes. The thing I want to talk about a little more shit was Knightdale. I saw Knightdale last year versus East Wake. And Knightdale was another situation where it blew my mind how young they were. I remember telling one of the coaches, like, God, y'all got like 12, 13 sophomores. Like, y'all should be good in the future. And the coach was like, yeah, they all stay. But that's a whole other thing. But, yeah, very young team. So, again.
They did stay so far.
Yeah, so they stayed so far to their junior year. Again, it goes back to what I said earlier. You want to talk about how good a roster is, you got to look at the junior class. So all those sophomores are, if we imagine a year better, a year stronger, a year smarter, then look for Knightdale to kind of make that push in this conference.
Awesome. And Jonas, last conference here, we have the Greater Neuse River 7A. So that used to be the Greater Neuse River 4A. The difference this year is Willow Spring is not in this conference. Willow Spring is in that, what's it called? Quad City, whatever. It's a bad conference name. Willow Springs in that 8A conference. But instead, we have Smithfield Selma in this conference as a 7A. So I had Randy Capps on earlier. We talked about Clayton, Cleveland, and Smithfield Selma. But I do want to get your thoughts on Fuquay, Garner, South Garner, and Southeast Raleigh.
Okay, so that's a very interesting conference.
It is.
That might be, if you're saying it out loud, top to bottom, the most competitive conference you might have is 919 this
Yes.
year. When you
In
just
multiple
said,
sports too.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. In multiple sports. The team in that league that intrigues me the most is Southeast Raleigh because that's the team I expect. There are two teams in this area I expect to take big jumps in: Millbrook and then Southeast Raleigh. And because Southeast Raleigh had so much talent last year, all those guys are back. Again, you start with the quarterback position. You have a D1 guy at quarterback. You got a D1 guy at running back, and then you have a Stanford guy at defensive end on the other side of the ball. And then you have probably the best young offensive lineman in the state, potentially the left tackle position. He's a sophomore. And again, consistent coaching or continuity in the coaching staff. Campbell's been a couple of years now. He's definitely shown he's turned things around and knows what he's doing. So Southeast Raleigh is the team I'm looking to see. Like, all right, is this their year? This is their year. Like this is their year. Their best chance to win the conference and make a playoff run. And then South Garner with the talent. I mean, probably the newest school in that conference, I guess. Well, you said Willow Springs, though, right?
Willow Springs not in the conference anymore, so yeah,
right.
they're newest, yeah.
So South Garner, the newer school, talent on both sides of the ball in the trenches, big time recruits. And I just want to see if they can hey, we're not the new kids on the block anymore. We have as much talent as anyone else. We can make some noise. It's hard to single out a certain team in that conference. That league seems like the most stacked league we have in this area.
Yeah. Yeah, anytime for South Garner, anytime you got a 4-star tackle and a 4-star edge rusher, you're going to be in good shape in high school football. Ebenezer Awatade is going to Notre Dame, and Ekene Oboko is going to Georgia, where his brother plays at now. So as long as South Garner can get enough support from the rest of the roster, they're going to have a better season than they had last year. I know last year it's disappointing for them, but I expect South Garner to at least be a playoff team this year and probably end up with a winning record just based off that top-end talent they have. Jonas, Garner last night shut down Wake Forest offense. Their defensive backfield between A.J. Randall, who has 10 offers, Max McDowell, who's a Gardner Webb commit, and Tatum McFadder last night, who is also a running back. He had a pick 6 on Wake Forest last night. That secondary is one of the best ones around here, and I feel like the defense that they have, as well as an offense with a junior quarterback in Christian Ormandy who's taking strides, I feel like Garner is a team that can make this complicated as well with Clayton Cleveland and Southeast Raleigh.
Yeah, there you go. And just go to the depth of the league. And Garner's a team in this area for many years who you don't overlook Garner. I don't care what their record is. They still got those blue helmets. They still got that that uniform has to change.
Yeah. They wear the same uniform every year.
Yeah, just the dogs in the uniform every single year. It's absolutely one of the most consistent programs in this part of the state. And yeah, just like Roseville, they're just going to reload. They're going to have tons of talent across the board every single year. And it doesn't surprise me to hear you say that secondary shutdown or that defense is as good as it looks. Again, now that you said it out loud, I'm looking at it, that league is every Friday night is going to be a fight. It's curious to see. I'm curious to see who comes out on top of that league. Did you say it's Clayton too? Clayton and Cleveland? No?
Yeah, Clayton Cleveland is in this. Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and pick the order right now? Do you want to pick the order of it?
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
And then to make it even more complicated, Fuquay Varina's in this conference as well. Jeb Hall's, I think, at this point, the longest, maybe besides Reggie Lucas, might be the longest tenured coach in Wake County. They are a well-disciplined program. And this year, Matthew Ziegler, the younger brother of Malcolm Ziegler, is going to be a sophomore. He had some nice moments last year as a freshman on varsity. So very curious to see how Matthew Ziegler does this season as a sophomore this year. Well, Jonas, I think that wraps up all of the Triangle area teams. Again, it's going to be a brand new era, lots of new schools, and it's going to be some complicated conference races. So I appreciate you coming on and joining me to talk about the new conferences and just kind of laying out how you see it fit. And again, where can people find you or where can they read your work on HighSchoolOT, obviously, but where else and where can they find you on social media?
They can find me at Jonas Pope IV on Twitter and just Jonas Pope IV on Instagram.
Awesome.
They can read my work on HighSchoolOT too. Yep.
Yeah, on HighSchoolOT.com. Lots of features and game stories coming from Jonas this fall. Thank you, Jonas. And next up, we're going to be joined by Asheebo Rojas from Chatham County to learn about those schools. So, Jonas, see you later.
Appreciate you, Joel.
All right, Asheebo, thanks for waiting. Looking forward to talking about Chatham County with you. Just to give yourself kind of a background, tell folks where they can find your work at and kind of give yourself a little bit of an origin story for how you got into doing this.
Hey, Joe. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, so I was a UNC grad in class of 2023. and saw this open up over the summer. I think I joined the paper, I think in week 2 of the 2023 season. And so we just dove right in, met all the coaches, met some players, met some ADs, of course. And going into year 3 here in Chatham County. And it's been a very great ride learning about these schools, covering these programs. Of course, as you guys know, basketball, baseball, softball, and a whole bunch of sports. We got some really great athletes that have competed and won some state championships over the past couple of years. And football is going to be exciting, of course, with new conferences. Of course, we still got some rivalry games that are still on the schedule with Northwood and Seaforth. Of course, Jordan Matthews and Chatham Central as well. So we're definitely excited down here in Chatham for the football season. We actually just had the Jack Shanner Jamboree at Northwood last night. So I was out there checking out some of our, of course, Northwood and Chatham Central were there from Chatham, and some other teams that those schools will be playing. So yep.
And where can everyone find your work at?
Yeah, they can find my work at Asheebo R38 on X. I'm also on Facebook at Asheebo Rojas. You guys can find me on there as well. And then, of course, the Chatham News and Record paper. Every Thursday, we'll have that out, and we have a circulation online as well where you can pick one up.
Awesome. He's been doing a great job. We're very impressed with him at HighSchoolOT, the work that he does there with Chatham News and Record. So, Asheebo, glad to have you on here. I want to get your general takeaway on the new conferences. Obviously, it's a whole new world for us. So we have a couple of different ones involving your county schools. So we have the Four Rivers 3A, 4A, where Northwood is in this conference with Eastern Randolph, Northmore, Jordan Matthews, Southwestern Randolph, and Iwari Charter. Is this kind of what you were expecting Northwood to end up in during the realignment, or did it kind of take you by surprise?
No, I think this is pretty much what we expected. With Northwood, it was we know Northwood's numbers have changed a lot with Seaforth coming in and taking a lot of kids from there. So we know Northwood, they were a little smaller this year. I think they are the 3rd most populated school in the county now. They not surprising. It doesn't work out too bad for them as far as travel. Everything is still pretty much in the same area between Chatham and Randolph. So not surprised at all with where they landed.
Got you. And then obviously Jordan Matthews is also in this conference. It's crazy to see Jordan Matthews as a bigger school than Northwood, like you were saying. That's just kind of wild to me. Do you think this is a good step for them?
Yeah, definitely. I think for, of course, sports like boys soccer, where they've really succeeded over the years, basketball as well. Other sports is really good. Football as well, too. And I think they're growing. They saw some more numbers this summer talking to Coach Kermit Carter, and he's really, talked about how that's really helped this offseason get some more guys out there. So, yeah, it's pretty good conference. Now, I know, like, if you guys follow football down here, like, it's still a work in progress, especially with Jordan Matthews, Chatham Central. But, yeah, they're really excited about, just starting in this new conference and getting a chance to compete against some really good competition.
So, and speaking of Chatham Central, they are kind of like the odd man out here because they're the 1A school. Even with expanding to 8A, they're still 1A. So they were put into this greater triad 1A, 2A conference where they're going to have to make some long trips. So they're playing college prep and leadership, North Stokes, South Davidson, and Winston-Salem prep in 1A. This conference also has 2As, Bishop McGinnis and South Stokes. I can come up with a pretty good guess of what the reaction was, but I want to hear from you. How did Chatham Central react to this conference?
Yeah, they said I was talking with the former athletic director, Thomas Peel, and he was like, man, we might have to get some charter buses, find a way to get some buses out there because there's going to be a lot of travel, especially with the other sports, winter sports in spring, where you're traveling maybe 2 to 3 times a week. But football-wise, when you're looking at that schedule in the conference, I mean, there's some teams that they've competed with in the past. Having a chance to win those games, and they actually beat South Davidson last year. That was their one win that was officially recorded. And, of course, North Stokes, a team they've been pretty close with over the years as well. So looking at, the conference of what they're in, and also, like I said, college prep and leadership, that's a team, don't know too much about them, kind of like a mystery right now. So, yeah, right. So, they have a chance to really kind of go in there fresh slate and try to build this program, up again and see if they can get some more wins in the win column.
What did you notice out of Chatham Central at the Jamboree last night?
Yeah, so actually really excited to talk about Chatham Central because if you guys followed Coach Darren Little when he got there in 2023, he started with 8 kids coming in just about a week or two before the season started. And then last year, it was a little bit of the same thing, low numbers coming in. But this season, they've been really excited about having numbers now about like consistently 18 to 20 kids during the spring and summer to where they can go 11 on 11 leading up to the season now. So that's really shown, and that really showed last night with especially Brooks Albright, quarterback, who was kind of thrown into the fire last year. And then he comes back with a full offseason, full, spring and summer with Little to learn the offense, get better as a quarterback, and, build better chemistry with his young receivers from last season. And Nick Glover, a guy that's really going to be a standout for them on both sides of the ball. Their connection really showed yesterday, especially against Carborough. They were really able to improvise some plays, get out of broken situations, but also execute plays, the way they were drawn up and make some big plays down the field, which is something they haven't really been able to do in the past. And also they have a pretty speedy guy in Tyler Congrove at running back. He was competing with the 4x1 team in state championship this past spring. So getting him out in space would be a big thing for them. And he showed that yesterday as well. Once he got out there, he took a couple long runs to the house, down the sideline for some big gains. And offensively, they just look like a more, cohesive team than they have in the past.
Yeah, I like the job that Coach Little does down there. Obviously, it's not the greatest circumstances in the world in terms of the numbers of kids they have, frankly. And he's done a good job with what he has there, and I can see that the progress they're making has been very positive. So looking forward to seeing what they can do this year. Asheebo, one last conference, I believe. So Seaforth is now a 5A school. They had been down in 2A, and they were looking pretty good in 2A. They got good very fast in a lot of sports, but now they're in 5A, so it'll be a tad more difficult in some sports. But they're in the Big 7 4A 5A conference with Carborough, he just mentioned at the Jamboree there. There's also 5A Cedar Ridge, Durham School of the Arts, Orange, South Granville, and Webb. Obviously, Durham School of the Arts does not play football, so we don't have to talk about them. But how do you see Seaforth fitting into this league?
Yeah, I was actually it was pretty interesting to me looking at the conference Seaforth is in, because I think last year and the years prior when they were in the Mid-Carolina 1A, 2A, they ran into some tough matchups, of course, with Northwood, Northmore, Cummings, teams like that, and Southeast Alamance too as well. And I think with this conference, they have a chance to really kind of play the competition that's more closer to their level. And, looking at what they brought in a new coach in Tolbert Matthews. He's got a whole new staff with a couple of guys that they've kept from the past staff as well. For example, like Tobias Palmer, former NC State guy, former Northwood guy, who's been really good with directing the offense there. And yeah, when I look at their schedule, I think they could be take a leap this season as far as getting to at least 500 and possibly getting in the playoffs for the first time. Because these players, like we said, they played that competition past couple of years as younger players. They got that experience. They're bringing a lot of that experience back. And yeah, with a new culture, especially with the type of culture Tolbert Matthews has been bringing there, as far as the level of competition, the attention to detail, things like that, and also just bringing more knowledge of the game to these kids. I think that'll really help them with what they've learned this offseason. And yeah, I think it will come out with some pretty good results for them compared to what they've seen in the past. So yeah, and that's another interesting thing about Seaforth is, talking with Tolbert last week at our media day, and he said everything is, like he said, competition. So even the quarterback, you probably know Duncan Parker was their starter last year, and he relied a lot on the run game, not too much in the pass. And this year he's in a quarterback battle with Mason Pooley, so his job is not totally solidified yet. So yeah, it could be a little bit of some new things for Seaforth this year, of course, like we said, with the coaching staff. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they do in this conference, which I think they have a really good chance of succeeding in.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the rest of the conference. So it's going to be interesting because the Granville County schools, Webb and South Granville, they're picking up kids from Granville Central. We're not really sure how it's going to look because we're not sure which kid is going where. For those that don't know, Granville Central closed this year. So literally the kids have been split between JF Webb High School and South Granville High School. So I'm not quite sure how those football programs are going to be impacted this year. But in terms of, you might know a little bit about Cedar Ridge and Carborough. What kind of threats do you think those will be to Seaforth?
Yeah, I don't see Cedar Ridge as being too much of a threat for Seaforth. I think that's a game they should feel confident going into. But I think Carborough is one that's kind of could be like a toss up there because I was watching Carborough last night, and they don't have as many numbers as Seaforth, to keep fresh bodies on the field, but they do have pretty decent size, and I like that about Carborough. Okay. And so we'll have to see how Seaforth can respond to that. But I think with them, having guys that can play one side of the ball, stay fresh. Also, too, just that's been a big thing for them, honing in on one position this offseason. I think Seaforth, to me, I think they have enough talent and depth to feel confident in pretty much most of these conference games.
One last note from me on this Big 7 4A conference. So Orange hired Fritz Hesenthaler, who used to be the coach at Southern Alamance High School. Something happened there where he ended up not being the coach before the playoffs 1 year. And but he's over at that program now. And everyone knows the kind of success that Orange has had in the past. They've had some pretty star players come through Orange. And if Fritz can kind of get that program humming, like Southern Alamance was humming, that's a team that I think long-term, maybe not quite this year, but long-term could be Seaforth's biggest obstacle in this conference. Asheebo, I want to circle back. I know I've been bouncing all over, but we're going to circle back one last time to the Northwood Jordan Matthews conference because I do want to get your thoughts on these teams before we go here. So give me your takeaways and thoughts on Jordan Matthews and Northwood and their storylines this year.
Yeah, so we can start with Northwood. Yeah, coming off of a playoff appearance last year. And biggest storyline for me is they had a senior class that produced a lot on offense and defense last year that, of course, they've lost this offseason. So especially in the receiver core, you had Cam Fowler, who hasn't I don't think he's coming out this season for football. Bo Harvey, of course, Isaiah Blair, also another basketball standout that was really good on the football field for them as well. Those guys, they produced a lot in the passing game and made the offense go last year. And also Antoine Brewington as well. And so that's the biggest question is who can fill in, for those guys and replace that production. Of course, they still bring back their quarterback and Grayson Cox, who threw for almost 2,000 yards last year. And they're bringing back Robert Tripp, 1,000-yard rusher, and Rajay Torres, who was a guy who was kind of underlooked in the receiving core, but he was a really good short game guy, get the ball, get some yards, go vertical, speedy small receiver, who also is very versatile as a kick returner and a punt returner as well. So he'll probably get a lot more targets this season, a bigger role as he's a leader in that group. And on the defensive side, they have to replace a guy in AJ Rome Mason, who had 74 tackles last year, 8 sacks, 15 tackles for loss, just really disruptive up front. And defensive coordinator Derek Lee is really confident in the guys they have now, and they showed a little bit of that last night. They have really good movement up front, very aggressive of getting through the line, getting in the backfield. So we could expect more of that from Northwood's defense this year. I think the biggest question, like we said, is just the offense. Can they replace that production? Can they limit the turnovers and match that complementary football with the defense? And I think that'll really help them this year because they have a really tough schedule as well. They start with Harnett Central, then they go to Asheboro, and then of course in conference you got Eastern Randolph, Northmore, teams like that. So they're going to have some pretty good competition to go up against and prepare for even before the conference play gets started. So it's going to be interesting to see how Northwood can respond to that as well.
Awesome. And then any more thoughts on Jordan Matthews where we go here?
Yeah, Jordan Matthews, that's a team, they're returning a lot of players. And I think the strength of that team, of course, is their skill positions. They did lose, I think, their best player last year in Kenneth Dula. He's at Chapel Hill this season. And he was really good for them, of course, as a cornerback. And they threw him in at wide receiver to go make some plays down the field. So they'll have to replace him and figure out who can fill in for him at that cornerback position. But they had some freshmen last year that got thrown into the fire due to injuries. Lennox Mordecai on the other side of the defense at corner. Matthew Victorino, a tall, lengthy kid. I think he's about 6'4" at safety. They got Namir Wiley, who was injured last year. He was also the quarterback last season. He's going to be back at safety as well. And Nolan Mitchell, who filled in at quarterback, really speedy guy who can take the ball. Well, last year, a lot of times he took the ball, direct snap, straight down the field, and broke some big plays. So they're going to have some guys in different positions. I think the biggest story for them, too, is that Kamari Hadley, you guys know from the basketball team, one of their leaders there, he's going to come in and play quarterback for Jordan Matthews this season. It was actually a crazy story. So Kermit has said him and an assistant were watching him run routes because he was actually coming out to play receiver, and saw him throwing the ball, and they were like, man, he can really throw it. So maybe we can try him out at quarterback, and they did, and it's been working out so far. Jordan Matthews and Seaforth, they did a 7-on-7 in July, and we went out there and checked him out, and he's really getting comfortable with just throwing the ball down the field, just letting it fly, letting his receivers go get it. That he connected with, of course, Dula before he split for Chapel Hill for some long touchdowns, connected with Wiley as well. And so talked to him last week at our media day, and he was like, the biggest thing now is just getting the footwork down and also reading defenses. So
okay.
If he's confident in that going into the season, it could be a different type of a look for Jordan Matthews' offense, which usually has been more run heavy, of course, because they haven't really had the personnel to get the ball down the field like that. So we'll see if that added extra element to them.
Awesome. Well, Sheba, I think that we covered about everybody in the county. Do you have maybe where we go, one big bold prediction for the county in football this year?
Yeah, bold one. I think for the past few years, I think Northwood has been like the standard of football in the county. I do think Seaforth, like we said, with the talent they have, the depth they have, and a new coach and culture coming in, I do think they're going to surprise some people and make a leap and kind of jump Northwood this year as a top program. So I know it's going to cause some buzz with the people down in Chatham County. Seaforth and Northwood, if you guys know, that's a heated matchup. Of course, those kids grew up with each other. Parents know each other. So, it's definitely going to be interesting to see that. And last year, Seaforth, even with the season they had, they were right there with Northwood. Actually had a chance to win that game at the end. They just lost the ball on a fumble, I think, at the 5-yard line at the end there, and lost that one like 9-6. So they were already kind of getting there on that level with Northwood, and I think this year they'll top them and take over.
Awesome. I like it. Well, Sheba, I really appreciate you coming on today to tell me about your teams in the area. And again, where can people find you and find your work at?
Yeah, they can find me on X at Asheebo R38. Also on Facebook at Asheebo Rojas. And then you can find my work in the Chatham News and Record newspaper. Comes out every Thursday. This week, we have the football preview from our media day out now. You can go to your local gas station, grocery store in Chatham County to pick one up. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, man, I appreciate it again. Best luck to your coverage this year. We're looking forward to hearing more from you throughout the season on high school team post-game show and stuff like that. Looking forward to seeing your coverage. And again, appreciate it. To continue this 919 football preview, next we're going to talk to Randy Capps from JoCoSports.com. Randy, for those that don't know you, give yourself kind of an introduction and to kind of explain, your history covering high school sports and what led you to Johnston County and the kind of stuff that you do right now.
Well, how much time you got, Joel? I've been covering high school sports, in some capacity since the early 90s. It's hard to believe it's been that long, but the short version is JoCo Sports is a product of Shandy Communications, which also owns J-Down Media, Johnston Now Magazine, and it's kind of the way I stay involved in high school sports, having done it for so long. We keep track basically of the Johnston County schools during the course of the season. In years past, we've done live broadcasts of games on Friday nights for football. This year, trying something a little different with the JoCo Sports Football Podcast, just to kind of see how that goes. And but yeah, I covered my own high school back in Marion, South Carolina, back in the day, and I've been doing it ever since. So kind of a passion project for me, and I'm grateful that I'm still able to cover high school sports in at least a small capacity.
Yeah, it's always awesome. For someone to kind of stick around and keep doing it because it is a passion, and Johnston County is a very interesting, good area for football. So I'm sure that's part of it as well. There's some good football you have to see when you cover these teams.
It really is. I mean, I've been very fortunate to cover a lot of good high school football programs in the course of my career. Of course, I kind of cut my teeth in Cleveland County with Shelby and Crest and those folks.
Mm-hmm.
And Cleveland kind of has that Crest Shelby feel to it. A lot of good high profile athletes, a lot of good games, and I'm really fortunate to have a great group of coaches here in the county that always answer the phone when I call or text and are willing to help me help them promote their program. So it just works out great for everybody, and the fact that we have a lot of good teams in the county is just kind of a bonus.
Awesome. So we're going to go through all the Johnston County teams kind of one by one. It's going to take a little bit because we're going to go through all the different conferences. This year we have all new conferences, obviously through the NCHA realignment. We're going to start with the Greer News River 7A, which basically is the same conference that it was, except they subbed out Willow Spring for Smithfield Selma, which is another Johnson County school. So we have Clayton, Cleveland, Smithfield, and then in Wake County, there's Fuquay, Farina, Garner, South Garner, and Southeast Raleigh. So Clayton, Cleveland, that's going to be the main focus of probably the whole county. Just big picture, your feeling on Clayton, Cleveland this year. I think it's coming down to them again this year. And then what's kind of your inkling of who's got the advantage this year?
I don't think you could completely discount Southeast Raleigh and Garner from the discussion of the conference championship, because both of those programs have made good strides in recent years and have really gotten better. But, until proven otherwise, I think you have to say that Clayton and Cleveland are the two picks to win the conference if there were such a thing, and talent for talent, pretty close in terms of high-profile athletes. Of course, Cleveland probably lost a little more off last year's roster than Clayton did. That Halloween game will probably decide the league, because it usually does. It's a really intense rivalry with some hard feelings on both sides. It's always fun for us neutrals to sort of check out.
I think this year the thing for me is both of their defenses are very strong. They have college players on both defenses. I think Clayton has more proven commodities on offense than Cleveland does, but it doesn't mean that Cleveland won't be very good on offense, as they usually are. It's just we don't really know who those guys are yet. Offensively speaking, do you think that Clayton's offense is really going to kind of take it to the next level this year in the second year under Aiden Smalls?
I think it definitely will. I mean, if you think about Aiden, he spent the early part of his high school career playing wide receiver. So while he's a very talented quarterback, he's relatively inexperienced in terms of leading a program and taking snaps and reading defenses. And another off season and a 7-on-7 season with Coach Scott Chadwick, quarterback whisperer as he is only going to make him better and better. Definitely would have to say that the Clayton offense is probably farther along at this point than the Cleveland offense, just because of having the known quantity of Smalls at quarterback. It's such a big part of what Coach Chadwick's offense likes to do. And really, Cleveland's offense is going to turn on Owen Holbrook. I mean, he's the latest in the line of a lot of talented quarterbacks that have come through Cleveland High. And you're talking about Darius Ocean and Jackson Bird and Skylar Locklear, guys that are all playing major college football. So it's a lot to live up to. But he's had a busy summer in terms of going to different camps. I think Virginia Tech and Duke, and I'm leaving several out. So his development will be a pretty big part of what Cleveland ends up being offensively, and of course their whole season may turn on that.
Yeah, I'm kind of past the point where I doubt the next Cleveland quarterback, because they've already defied the odds, right? Like every single quarterback in the row has been a college player. So I'm just kind of I'm assuming that whoever it is just going to be a college player, because they're already well past the average in terms of the just consecutive kind of college players you get at that spot. And yeah, the system as a whole. Obviously, they're so good on JV. Those kids are all running that system up through the whole program. I expect the system is going to be still pretty good, and they're probably have some new players that are going to fill, and we're probably going to know those names pretty soon. The new guys who are the stars on that team. I do want to ask you about Aiden Small's weapons on the Clayton team. He has the big tight end River Fiore. He's a really good blocker. I believe there's a couple of receivers as well. There's a receiver, I believe, from Cleveland that is now at Clayton, D'Angelo Ruffin. What do you make of this kind of whole receiving core at Clayton, and can you see it being one of the better ones the Comets ever had?
Ruffin is a big get for Clayton. He was a big target for Jackson Bird last fall. He's very talented, can make his own space, so to speak, on the outside. And River Fiore, I have a thing about tight ends in high school. They're always open, but they never seem to get the football. And the same has been true for him, and that's despite having a guy that's committed to NC State playing quarterback. He's going to be open. Can they get him the football? To me, what we don't talk about enough with Clayton is their running game. They had a lot of injuries last year at the running back position. A lot of guys just kind of coming in and doing what they can do. A healthy season out of Terrace Hobbs would be a big deal. A healthy season out of Noah Smith would be a big deal. And if those two guys can take the pressure off Smalls, having to generate the rushing yards as well as the passing yards, I just think it opens everything up in the middle for Fiore, and then Ruffin on the outside. A huge get for them. They have a lot of exciting pieces. I'm going to be pretty surprised if they're not excellent offensively.
the Cleveland defense is the unit I keep thinking about. On the defensive line, they have Cameron Melvin and Jalen King back. They were, I think, 2 of the 4 leading tacklers last year. The big loss is going to be Sawyer Lowe, the linebacker, but his brother, Braxton, I believe, is still there. What do you make of the Cleveland defense? Do you think that defense is going to be as strong as it has been lately?
I do. I think their defense might actually kind of lead the way for them early as they figure things out offensively. And if you remember, they do a good job defensively over there because Coach Riley is heavily involved in that side of the football. But you touched on, Cam Melvin and Jalen King, Daniel Lugo as well. They're really going to do a good job getting after the quarterback. And of course, as you know, a good pass rush can cover up a lot of deficiencies in your back four because the quarterback doesn't have time to throw the football. So they may be defense driven early in the season, and of course they're jumping right in against Pinecrest. So we're going to find out pretty early what they've got and how ready they are. But they might be a lot better defensively early, and then their offense will kind of catch up late as they go through the season.
And Clayton, obviously, no slouches themselves on defense. They have a 4-star defensive lineman, Keyshawn Stansel. Obviously, everyone knows that name. But also the cornerback, A.K. Kermel, I think he's going to be a junior this year, so he's another college prospect there. What do you think Clayton has to do better on defense than they did last year?
Kermel's an absolute stud. I've been doing this a long time. He's one of the best one-on-one cover corners I've ever seen. I think defensively for Clayton, they got to get off the field. If you think a lot about their games that they lost, and there weren't many, Richmond County, Clayton come to mind right away. 3rd down, get off the field. You're good on 1st down, you're good on 2nd down, and then you have a breakdown, you give up a 1st down, and then all of a sudden that turns into a scoring drive. You're behind the 8 ball, and away you go. So there's a process for teams, and you learn how to win, then you learn how to win big games, and then you learn how to beat really good teams. And Clayton is at that 3rd part. And one of the reasons, or one of the ways rather, that you beat a really good team is you do the little things on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down, and you bring the punt unit out on the field. And defensively, if they can find a way to do that, they got a chance to be special.
I agree. So we spent a lot of time on these 2 teams, but it's well earned. These are 2 of the best teams in the 919. Again, Randy Gaps from JoCoSports.com with us. Okay, so do you want to make a prediction on the 2 teams, or do you want to kind of wait for the season to play out?
Oh, man. I tell you what, I will give you a mid-August prediction, and then I reserve the right to amend it when I actually see some football. So I'll say at this moment, I think that Clayton will probably find a way to win that game on Halloween at this moment.
Okay.
But I reserve the opportunity to watch Cleveland's offense develop over the course of the season, and I might change my mind. How's that? How's that for a hedge?
That is certainly fair. We don't really know anything at this point, so.
It's talking season. We don't know anything.
It is talking season. And the good news is we're a week away from the actual season, so we'll get some answers pretty fast here. I do want to get some thoughts from you on Smithfield Selma. I know they're entering, I believe, year 2 under Stanley Williams, who's an alum of that school. Have you gotten a sense of the progress they've made so far?
I love Stanley Williams so much enthusiasm. It's nice to have a guy in the job over there that's excited to be there, and he is. I've never talked to him when he wasn't just pumped up and enthusiastic. And I talked to him last year when they were in the middle of an 18-game losing streak, and he was still that way. So that enthusiasm, as Colin Powell once put it, is a force multiplier, and they're going to need it because they're playing in 7A. Mainly because they have the county's international baccalaureate program, which adds about 200 kids to their enrollment, none of which play football, by the way.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of an unfortunate spot, for the football program. It's a great spot for the rest of the county because that program is amazing. But instead of hanging out in the Carolina Pines with, West Johnston, South Johnston, and Triton, they're up in the greater Neuse River with Clayton, Cleveland, Southeast Garner, and Garner. So as I said on the podcast, it's possible that Triple S is better than they were last year, but doesn't win very many more games just because the schedule for them is absolutely brutal. And I don't know if you've noticed, they go all the way through 1 through 10 with no off week. Their bye week is Halloween.
That's tough. That's always tough to do.
It's really tough. I noticed that in the middle of recording the podcast, I was like, wow, that's just brutal. So that's going to be tough for them.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And I believe they are the absolute smallest team in 7A.
They are indeed. They are the bottom of 7A. 4 kids, I think it was.
This is one of the schools where perhaps if we had kept doing the formula we were doing for realignment, that factored in past success, stuff like that, maybe that would have helped out this school a little bit better to maybe stay down in 6A. But that's all in the past. I do want to go over to the actual 6A conference here that you're involved with, which is Carolina Pines 6A. So in that conference, we have South Johnson and West Johnson. Anyone else from Johnson County in that conference?
That's it for the county in that one.
Okay. All right. What are your thoughts on South and West?
They've been joined at the hip for the last 2 years. The season finale in 23, South won and went to the playoffs, and West missed it by a game. And in the season finale last year, West won it, South didn't, and West went to the playoffs, and South didn't by a game. So they've been really intertwined in recent years, and they might be that way again. West defensively, to me, is going to be ahead of the game, probably among the better defenses in this league. A lot of talent coming back on the defensive side of the football for Coach Harper and those folks over there. Just a ton of guys, proven performers: Tanner Roof, Cooper Smith, Caden Trotter, Jaden Evans, Christian Coakley, just a long list of folks that decorated all conference honors. And a guy that used to coach or used to play linebacker at Fayetteville State, Coach Harper, when you ask me about his defense, he just goes on about how good and talented they are. So I'm excited about them offensively, or defensively, rather. Offensively, for them, a little more of a question mark. There's going to be a new quarterback, some new pieces on the offensive line. So like Cleveland, they may be defense-driven early, whereas South is kind of the opposite. A known quantity at quarterback in Tyler Williams, a known quantity at running back in Holt Langston. Some good pieces defensively, but not nearly as many. Mason Weaver in the middle of the Trojan defense, a shot to be the county defensive player of the year. But they're not complete teams, but they have potential to win 7-8 games and make some serious noise down in 6A.
Yeah, the parallels between those two programs is pretty fascinating. Do you see? Is there a chance that either of them can break through into the top of this conference? Because we're expecting good seasons out of Palmer Central, Lee County, and probably Union Pines again. I'm not sure how much you know about those other programs, but can you see South or West kind of making a run at the top?
I've seen Harnett Central a couple times over the past few years. They've really taken some major steps in recent years to get better. Of course, you mentioned Lee County, always good. Union Pines has been on the up and up the last few years as well. I think West, for me, assuming they can find a reliable quarterback and enough running with Kobe Mayo and those folks, defensively they're as good as anybody, and they're going to need to be against those teams you mentioned. I think if we had to pick a potential breakout amongst the county teams in the Carolina Pines, I'd probably lean towards West, just because of the known quantities on defense. And their schedule really before they get into the conference isn't that stout. I think they play Clayton. That would be their toughest non-conference game. So they've got a chance to be in a good spot when the conference season rolls around, and they should be ready to go by then.
Awesome. And again, Randy Capps from JoCoSports.com. And Randy, before we get down into the lower classifications, I want to circle back to the biggest school in the county, which is Corinth Holders. Corinth Holders is the only Johnson County school in the Cap 8 conference. Obviously, this conference has a couple of just powerhouses right now in Millbrook and Rollsville, and Leesville Road is another very good football program. But Corinth Holders, they made a very, very good hire last offseason, bringing in Carl Smith, the former coach at Bedingfield, in person. And I think that he has a grasp on that program that I think that program's been waiting for, in terms of just someone that really kind of understands those kids and gets the best out of them. What are you expecting out of Corinth Holders in year 2 under Carl Smith?
I think what we talked about with Coach Williams at Triple S applies here. Enthusiasm and somebody that wants the job and is excited about it. Kids respond to that. And if you think about Corinth Holders last year, they were 2-8 in 23, and really the same cast came in, won 4 more games, and were 6-4. And really the only thing that changed was him. And he was hired at the end of July. I think I went over to Corinth Holders for the press conference on like August 1st or 2nd, and he's basically introducing himself to people with the season 3 weeks away. It was just bizarre over there. So they're in a better spot continuity-wise. Obviously, the neighborhood's a little tougher. But, they're going to be sound. They're going to be, they're going to take care of the football. They're going to play good defense. They're going to tackle well. All the boring coach things that you hear about. But he does a good job getting his kids to buy into that. The little things matter. The little things are important. And, much like Triple S, they might be a little better, but the record might be pretty similar just because of the schedule they're going to play. It's loaded.
Yeah, they're not really getting any favors moving from the old conference to this new conference. It's different teams, but the same kind of deal where you have some pretty top end talent involved there. But I do like the trajectory of that program, so I do think maybe over the next few years here we could see them potentially contend for conference championship down the road.
The word sleeping giant comes to mind. I mean, they 2,256 kids over there, so I mean, numbers are never going to be the issue. It's a question of can they develop their talent? Can they drum up even more enthusiasm for a program that had been a little down before Coach Smith got there? And I think you're right. I think the pieces are there for things to really develop over there over the next couple of years.
And there's always been size there too. They always have big kids. They have some big kids right now too.
Yeah, I mean, you think about guys like Jacob Monk. Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, they turn out good linemen over there, and they do a good job of developing interior line folks. Now they need a few skill pieces to go with it, and then we'll be cooking over in Pirate Country.
I agree. So we're going to jump down to the Three Rivers 4A conference. Only one Johnson County school in this conference. This one's kind of a mixture of a lot of different counties and whatnot. So North Johnson is in this conference. What's your kind of read on this program?
North is interesting. I mean, they've lost a ton of talent off last year's team, but Caleb Pone, the quarterback, is back for Coach Kyle Schenk in his second year in the program. And Kyle Schenk is doing a good job really developing Pone. Pone really took some steps last year, kind of a poor man's Aiden Smalls in terms of being a dual threat guy, put up a lot of yards running and passing, and that was missing the game with an ankle injury. So they're going to be challenged in that league. I think I looked it up, 6 counties. I think their closest county game is 45 minutes away over in Lenoir County. So some serious bus travel coming for North Johnston. But they got a chance to be competitive mainly because of Pone. But it's going to take a lot of faces and a lot of names that we don't know yet to sort of take a step up and take a step up pretty quickly for a team that was hit pretty hard by graduation.
Awesome, good to hear. And then next conference I have is the Quad County 2A, 3A, 4A. So ALA Johnston is in this conference, and they're an interesting program because for a while there, I think they were playing kind of an independent schedule, and now they're in a conference for the first time. I know there's been some talent over there, and just based off where it's located, being a charter school where it's located, you would expect there to be some talent in that program. What do you know about that team?
We don't use the word transfer portal in high school, but they've been in it. Let's just say they've picked up a few players from around the county. And last year they were an association member, but because they came in at the end of a realignment schedule, they weren't in a league. So they played basically as an independent, which means 9 of their 10 games were on the road. And their first home game this year is August 22nd, but it's at 4 in the afternoon because the lights aren't ready yet. So that's sort of the plight of ALA as it develops as a program. But if you think about last year, they basically played an entire season with no seniors. So that pretty much the whole roster comes back intact. And as I mentioned, they've sort of improved around the edges a little bit. And that league beyond Roanoke Rapids is not ungettable for them. I mean, they have an opportunity to join that league and be pretty effective right away. And if you remember, they're the only 2A in the 2A, 3A, 4A. And I don't know how familiar you are with how they're handing out playoff bids in this brave new 8 classification world we're in. But if they're decent as the only 2A in that league, they're probably going to get in the playoffs.
Yeah, and that was the interesting thing is what they were going to do with all these split conferences, because in the past, they had these special provisions for the split conference teams where they had to be 500 or in the top 3, but none of that is the same, where it's just all RPI. And yes, I believe that they will benefit from playing larger schools in the conference, being the small school in the conference RPI wise, because just naturally we see that higher RPIs come with higher classifications in general. So that'll be interesting for them. Truly, I don't really know what to say about them until I actually see them play, an actual full varsity schedule in a conference. So I'm very fascinated to see how they shape up this year.
We're guessing a lot about them because I haven't seen them much either. I mean, I've seen some tape. Yeah. They've got some names we should probably know. I mean, Ian Wands is their quarterback. Completed 62% of his passes last year for 19 touchdowns and about 1,500 yards. And they've got a really good interior lineman, Josh Crenshaw, who's picking up some interest really from some smaller D1 schools. Plays on both sides of the football, had a really good camp season. So there's some players that are getting some buzz out there. But like you said, I mean, until they start lining up on Friday night in games that matter, frankly, we just don't know yet.
and just to me conceptually, right? You have a charter school in Johnson County that is in 2A, and you figure, if that charter school was to suddenly pick up players who maybe would have been the second or third string players, maybe a lot of those players probably would be considered very good players, at the 2A level. So just conceptually, I think it might work. It's one thing to think of it conceptually and then to see it, but my idea is that it might work for them in 2A over the long run here.
And it's one of those deals that because of where they're located, I mean, if you are at Clayton or at Cleveland or at Triple S or at West, and you decide that you have a better football opportunity at ALA, you can go. And because of where they're situated and their status as a charter school, and as you mentioned, playing down in 2A, it's an opportunity for players and for that program really to get pretty good really fast. I mean, it's a good spot for Coach Blackburn to be in, and I'm interested to keep an eye on the Patriots and see how that develops over the next couple of seasons.
Yeah, they're definitely one to watch. Randy Capstrom, JoCoSports.com. Randy, is there any schools we've missed? I've been going through the conferences.
We've not talked about Princeton yet.
Princeton, yeah, let's get Princeton and the Swine
The
Valley. Thank
wonderfully named Swine Valley. I love the name of that league.
I don't know how I forgot because that's my favorite conference name ever. So
That's
Princeton,
it's probably my favorite football conference for the county, just in terms of who's in it.
Yeah. So I'll run through it. So we have Rosewood in 2A, and Goldsboro is 3A, James Keenan is 3A, Midway is 3A, Princeton's 3A, Spring Creek is 3A, and Walshurst Hill is 3A. So this is another one where you have kind of like these historic programs, namely Walshurst Hill and James Keenan, and Princeton. I think is on that kind of level as well, just in terms of the consistency. Your read on Princeton this year, I know that they have a couple of running backs who are back. There was one player, I believe, who I think was going to be the guy last year and ended up being hurt, but he should be a senior this year. Is that right?
Austin Wallen is back as what they call the Fred, which is basically the guy that takes most of the snaps. It's not really a quarterback in the sense of what we know as a quarterback. And, of course, Tim McFadder, freshman sensation last year, basically just took a bottle of white out to the record book over there. Rushed for 1,739 yards, 27 touchdowns. He also had 3 interceptions because he plays both ways, but they're very young. Is what Coach Gaster would tell you, and when you see them line up, you see it. Their offensive line is going to have to get good fast, and they will, because they always do. And scheme-wise, Princeton is so funky that they sort of, steal their way through the early season as they figure it out, and then by the time teams get a good read on them, then their offensive line's pretty good, and they're even harder to stop. So, I mean, the fatter they'll wall and give them a chance, but they're going to have, like North, they're going to have to develop some people pretty quick to be competitive in what's going to be a pretty tough football conference.
Yeah, T.O. McFadder's freshman season was so good. He's one of the guys where you looked at his numbers and you just kind of think, like, if he does this for 4 years, his name is going to end up being very high in a lot of these categories. So
it's going to be in T.A. McClendon territory if he does this for 4 years.
Yeah, so I hope he stays healthy, and I want to see him make a push for it, because that's going to be something to see if he can really get up there in a lot of those categories.
He's not a big guy, but he doesn't take a lot of kill shots. You know what I mean? I mean, he finds a way to sort of slide off. And, he gets down, or he doesn't take direct hits. Because the first time I saw him, I'm like, gosh, he's tiny. He's going to get killed. But he never really takes that kill shot. And a guy that carries the ball as much as he does and plays on defense, and yet he's never nicked up, at least not that we know of. So it's pretty impressive.
He may have the Lamar Jackson, sixth sense where, for whatever reason, Lamar Jackson just slightly avoids injuries all the time. And
it's a great comparison. That's what it reminds me of. He never takes that direct shot. And it's like, ooh, he never takes
how are you avoiding all these people? he just does it. That's good. Princeton, interested to see how they do with the younger team. What's your thoughts on this conference as a whole? Do you have any read on the Wayne County schools?
I talked to Kyle Jones the other day, and he was telling me how he thought Goldsboro had a chance to be much better. He's like, everybody's counting Goldsboro as an easy win, but he was cautioning me against that. I've seen Midway a couple of times. They've been pretty good, and Rosewood was a little down last year, but they're traditionally pretty good as well. So I did that entire league, and apologies to Spring Creek, other than them, has a chance to be pretty interesting. And if I were going to follow a league, and just one league out of all the ones we talked about, it would be this one, just because of the traditions involved and the atmospheres. Like I remember when Wallace Rose Hill came to Princeton for a playoff game during Kanye Roberts' senior year. There were like 6,000 people at Princeton. That place was nuts. It was so much fun.
Yeah, there's gonna be some awesome atmospheres in this conference. And with the Rosewood point, usually when Rosewood's kind of down a year, that's usually a good sign they're gonna be up the next year. Is kind of how programs like that roll. Do you know where the Princeton Wallace Rose Hill game is at this year off the top of your head?
I do not, but I can effort that for you.
And would you? Are you thinking this is like a James Keenan Wallace Rose Hill race, or do you think Princeton by the end of the year could seed itself kind of matured enough to be involved with those two?
Princeton hosts Wallace Rose Hill on October 3rd, but to answer your question, I don't, unless Princeton gets really good really fast, and a lot of people I don't know yet step up and take key roles, you have to put them behind Wallace Rose Hill and James Keenan in terms of the favorites in this league. And look, I'm a Johnston County homer. It's what we do here. But just being honest with you, I mean, it's going to be tough for them to close that gap based on what's on paper right now. But, I mean, it is talking season. A lot can change between now and October 3rd when those two teams play. And one thing we do know is that the Bulldogs will be there. They'll be ready to play. And with Tia McFadder and Austin Llewellyn, they got a chance to beat anybody.
Awesome. Well, Randy Capps from JoCoSports.com. Unless we've missed another school, I think we can wind it down here.
Actually, we did the whole county, didn't we?
Okay. Actually, I want to get if you have one bold prediction for anything Johnston County this year, if you want to share that. Anything coming to mind right now?
Let's see. One bold prediction. I will say that West Johnston will be way better than anybody thinks.
Okay.
That's what I'll say. Because I get the feeling they will figure out enough offensively to go what I think might be the second or third best defense around here.
Yeah, a good defense is a good floor to have for a team. So that's a good one.
It's quite the platform for them, and theirs is really good.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Randy Capps, JoCoSports.com. Randy, I really appreciate your time today. Thanks for coming on here and sharing about your area, about Johnston County. And again, where can people find you and find your work?
We're on JoCoSports.com with day-to-day coverage of the Johnston County high schools. And, of course, you can look up the JoCo Sports Football Podcast wherever you receive your podcast, and we'll be there every week as well. The season preview is already up, so if you want to hear some more talking season, that would be a good place to do it.
Awesome. Well, Randy, again, I appreciate it, and best luck with your coverage this year.
Thanks for having me, Joel. Thanks for all you do.